So thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate this opportunity. HSMAI, Joey, Jackie, Navagiri. I think what I want to actually do while we are here, and we're kind of getting, I can see the energy levels a little bit lower. We're going to do a quick exercise, right? I want you to look at the person on your right and the person on your left, and I want you to ask them 3 questions, right? What's their name? Where they're from? And lastly, what is their next travel destination, or where they would like to travel next? Yeah? Do that? Okay, great, awesome. And it's part of what we're going to talk a little bit about today when it comes to building a data strategy that will essentially help you to drive better performing emails, right? Bear with me, the plan will reveal itself. My name is Suneet. It is my first time presenting at the HSMAI conference, so thank you so much for your participation. A little bit about me, I joined Revinate about 8 months ago. I used to be with TripAdvisor before that and Expedia, so I've been in the space of hospitality, travel, tech over the last 7 years. What we're going to talk about today is the power of guest data. I think the presenters before me, Michael, Puneet, Mervin, have done a phenomenal job of sort of emphasizing the fact that we need to use data, right? I'm just going to give you a couple of tidbits on how you can use that data and actually start applying it to your day-to-day, starting tomorrow or even today. So one of the main goals of why we collect all this data is pretty obvious, right? We want to get our customers to buy more hotel rooms from us. You want them to spend more with you when they're on property. Or you're looking at ways in which you're engaging with your customers, right? You're looking at ways in which these customers stay connected to you so that they feel a certain brand affiliation and they're looking to come back to your property next time they're thinking about your destination. So if you look at what the customers are looking for, if we put the guests at the center of everything that we do, right? We heard from Mervin about how Leela is doing that through a focus on destinations. I'm going to take a step further and say, let's think about what kind of experiences are we delivering to our customers, right? Most customers prefer personalization, right? Whether it was Professor Detlef Remy, who checks into his staycation hotel and gets asked the 3rd time around, sir, what's your name, right? We're becoming super used to the fact that everything about the content that we consume, everything about the places we shop at are taking into account every other previous interaction that you've had with them, right? So whether it's your personal newsfeed on your Facebook profile, or whether it is your grocery shop down the street where the person knows your name, right? Because or the coffee shop, right? The Starbucks lady behind the barista saying, "Hey, welcome back, Sandeep. Nice to have you." So consumers desire that level of personalization. The other part of that is they're frustrated if that personalization, that previous connect with your customers is not displayed to them, right? And they make it super apparent by not buying things from us, right? Not booking our hotel rooms. But also at the same time, you should get it right. The dividends that you would get off of it are also significant. This was a study that was conducted by the Hotel School at The Hague, which said that consumers are willing to pay a significant amount more than for personalized and customized experiences as compared to something which is generic. So now that we all buy into this idea that yeah, personalization is important, it has benefits, there are dollars behind it, how do you go about doing that, right? And data, as we heard, plays a big role in it. We've heard a couple of presentations around how you look at data, what data you should look at, how do you measure results. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to sort of break it down into slightly simpler bits here, right? Personalization overall helps you to build that loyalty component at the beginning. But it also has super important benefits operationally because it saves you time. If you already know your customer's name, your front desk person is not spending 30 seconds typing that same name in again. It drives you ROI, because you're now sending out much more relevant content, much more relevant campaigns to your customers, which take into account what their previous preferences were like. And then this creates essentially a virtuous cycle where all of these future interactions that the customers has had with you, whether it's in terms of their loyalty, time savings, help you build more data. And that data can then be utilized again to help you build out a better campaign, a better experience, a better loyalty from your guests. Now, one of the things that this is something that came to me as an idea yesterday when I was talking to Puneet, right? Puneet is a foodie, many of us here are. People don't tend to think of email marketing as like a very important part of their digital marketing strategy. If I talk to digital marketers today, they're much more concerned about what's happening on social media, how Facebook is changing its algorithm, oh, we need to invest in meta search. And think of email marketing like salt, right? By itself, it's a super innocuous part of our food. But the moment you add it to anything else, it enhances the flavor. It's a season. It makes whatever else you're having that much more flavorful. Email marketing is something along that line. And the data that proves it is that most consumers prefer to have email as a preferred method of delivery of promotional material. And a couple of reasons for that is, if you think about social media, most of the content, even if you come across a great campaign, a great discount, but you're not ready to make that purchase decision, that content is ephemeral, right? It's going to go away the next time you log in, the next time you refresh your news feeds, right? Whereas email is a much more easily searchable medium through which people prefer to go back to the promotion that they saw on social media and then make that buying decision when they're ready to make it. So it's a much stronger method to deliver your promotions and have people go back to it and refer back to it. It also shows higher conversion rates, right? Because people are further down in their booking funnel. They have much larger intent when they come back to an email promotion. And that reflects in the higher conversion rates that you see from email marketing. Now, we heard a little bit about using your guest data, right? Now, what we're going to do is, the exercise that we essentially did at the beginning of this presentation was really a way for you to gather some data, right? I gave you the strategy of what data points you were collecting, but essentially you spoke to the people on your right and people on your left, and now you have some talking points to start utilizing when you talk to the person next to you, right? You heard about where they were traveling next, where they were from, gives you more data points to use when you're trying to target this person for an engaging conversation, right? Which was the objective of this entire exercise. Similarly, in case of hotels, there is a ton of engaging data that the consumer is giving us, right? I think other than my social security department or my government organization that manages my social security, hotels are the only other organizations that have that much data on me, right? They have access to my passport every time I check in. They know whether I'm married or not. Most likely they've asked me for my anniversary, right? And in many cases, consumers willingly give us that information, right? Now it's entirely up to us to utilize that information in ways in which we can make that consumer's experience that much better, right? So I've just put out a few data points that a hotel would typically find in their PMS or in their email marketing tool that they're using. And I'm just giving out some ideas here in which you can use all these data points to really create a customized consumer journey that really engages the guest from point A to point B in their booking cycle, right? You're almost like breadcrumbing them towards picking your hotel, picking your service again. Michael in the previous presentation gave us some really nice ways in which you can visualize this sort of breadcrumbing and how you funnel people down into making that booking decision with you. I'm just giving you a couple of ideas here to think about how you can utilize the current data that you have in your systems to create engaging campaigns off of. I've got a couple of inspiration slides here, just to think of how these hotels have gone about taking this data from their PMSs and delivering those smart messages, right? Relevant messages to relevant segments. Historically, we've always done the mass blast kind of an approach to email marketing, right? Even when I talk to hoteliers, I very likely get the question, oh, so you guys do EDMs, huh? Mass blast, yeah. And we're like, whoa, that's just so last century. But we spoke about the data points that you gathered about the people you're sitting next to. You're talking about now engaging conversations. And that conversation can be easily, or those data points can be easily converted into engaging campaigns like the ones that you see in front of you here. And they can be made fun, right? And you see immediate results of all those types of campaigns. Our hotel marketing specialists tell us that when they start working with a new hotel that has never done any segmentation, versus when they start doing some kind of segmentation based on these data points that they have available, the revenue per recipient increases by 73%. Yeah, so I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Imagine sending a mass blast campaign to everyone in your database and then smartly segmenting that database with the information that you have about these guests and sending a campaign out results in a 73% increase in revenue per recipients. Lastly, we spoke earlier about creating that engaging conversation, right? Building that loyalty. And post-day emails is another way in which you're letting the customer know that this entire relationship between your guest and your hotel is not just about this day, but you want to continue it, right? You care about that relationship more as a long-term aspect than just that one transaction that you're getting out of them. It allows you to also incentivize them or educate the market about why they should be booking direct, right? We hear a lot about, hey, we want to shift, our bookings from the OTA channels to our direct channels. But what are we doing about it? Are we educating the customers, right? There is a whole generation like myself who essentially grew up booking hotels on OTAs because that's what was available, that's what was readily marketed to me in the past. In order to get me to change my booking behavior, I have to be incentivized, right? So post-day communication is a great way for you to actually put those benefits out in front of the customers, and a lot of times just keep reiterating them, right? So based on this personalization, again, a lot of this data is from other benchmarks around the industry. And it talks about what the benefits of these personalized, segmented communications to the guest are, right? I don't want to delve too much into this, but again, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to just take into account the data points that you have potentially available within a hotel, right? Just a quick raise of hands, who all do a geography-based campaign, email campaigns with their hotels or with their businesses? It doesn't even matter what businesses they are. Okay, 1, 2, great, 3, right, 4, that's amazing. We've used those data points. How many of you do promotions which are room type based? 1, okay. Mervin's ahead of the curve for most of this stuff. 2, that's amazing, right? It's another way in which you're taking into account people's past booking behavior and using that data to deliver really relevant information to them, to help them enhance their next possible stay. And we tend to think, at Revinate at least, we tend to think of today as the golden age of personalization. Historically, when you had to have a one-on-one conversation with a guest, it was amazing, right? You knew each of your guests. Your general managers would walk the lobbies and they would know every single important guest that was walking in. Today, a lot of this can be done by technology, right? So most of the heavy lifting of having that one-on-one conversation is today, we have the technology available to really continue that one-on-one conversation without having to necessarily put in a whole lot of time, effort, money into establishing those relationships. So think of the graph, right, of one campaign being blasted out to everyone, right? The relevancy in that sort of situation was very small because there was no personalization. Today, we sit at the precipice where machine learning and a lot of the technology that's available to us today will almost allow us to take that personalization to a one-on-one basis, right? Google's doing that to our news feeds, right? But now that technology is even available to hoteliers to be able to do that level of personalization for their campaigns. And all of that eventually results in dollars and cents. Here's a case study of a partner of ours that essentially was able to use a hyper-segmented, automated campaign setup to send out those relevant campaigns without necessarily having to add a lot of work to their day. And it drove 138x ROI, which was a phenomenal number. Now, with that, I think I want to dive a little bit deeper into closing the loop off in that entire cycle. Like we've seen, okay, personalization is great. We've now created some campaigns which, using the data points that we have available about our guest, we've taken into account the consumer's past booking behavior, we've personalized it, and now we've delivered a campaign which has driven great ROI for us, right? We need to close that loop off by measuring the results. And one of the ways you can think about measuring results, and this is where the benchmarking comes in, right? You saw earlier a couple of slides about how segmentation leads to higher open rates from a generic email. But let your own data be your guiding force, right? Benchmark consistently against your own campaigns, whether you're thinking about it from a year-on-year basis or whether you're thinking about it from campaign 1 to campaign 2 perspective. And a couple of big measures to think about when you're looking at your email marketing strategy is to look at leading metrics such as the open rates, or intent-based metrics such as the click-through rates, and then lastly, conversion metrics, right? How many of these people actually converted, made a booking? And each of these 3 data points are going to help you create a funnel that tells you where exactly are the major pain points for your customers. Is it that you're not sending enough engaging emails? Your open rates will fall. If you think that maybe the call to action on your campaigns aren't that great, your click-through rates will be impacted. And then lastly, if you think that your booking experience, the booking engine, how easy it is to make reservations is poor, then that will be reflected in your conversion rates, right? If you flip it all around, say, am I doing great on all 3 metrics? You'd see much improved numbers on your open rates, your click-through rates, and your conversion rates. So as I was talking about the open rates and benchmarking consistently against your own campaigns, I think one of the key things to remember is that it's super critical that you're constantly testing things out, right? Even when you're doing benchmarking, compare yourself against your own campaigns of the past. Compare yourself through maybe through A/B testing, right? These methodologies, these technologies allow you to continuously refine your funnel, continuously refine the efficiency of your efforts. Lastly, the one thing to always remember is with email marketing, stay within the GDPR and PDPA rules as they are applicable here in Asia. GDPR is obviously a much more restrictive system. Most of the countries in Asia are not bound by GDPR rules. So in Asia, you can use something called as implicit consent, right? These are ways in which you can suddenly help you improve your database size, the reach of your email marketing campaigns. So, just recapping on the key takeaways. The guest data essentially enables you to drive personalization. Personalization drives engagement, and a consumer that loves your product tends to buy more. When when you've got a massive database that you're working with, segmenting your audience is a key method to improve the overall revenue that you drive per campaign. It helps you to narrow down on what are the people or what are the customers that we should be going after, and what are the kind of results that we want to drive from these customers. Lastly, driving incremental revenue through upsells also is a critical way in which you can gauge out how effective your campaigns are. Are people really thinking about buying just the lead-in room at the cheapest rate possible, or are they really looking for an experience? And you'd be surprised that the kind of conversion rates that we see on upsells is massive. It can be as high as 20%, right? Which means consumers are really looking for that enhancement to their entire experience. We have unfortunately in the past bucketed them to a transactional sort of a box, right? We haven't allowed them to enhance their stays with us easily enough. And then turn your guests into advocates, right? We talk about, you know, word of mouth. We talk about how important it is for us to build a brand. And I think it was a Steve Jobs quote. No, it was Jeff Bezos quote, who said that your brand is what people talk about you when you're not in the room, right? And that is what this is about. It's about how do people talk about you when they go talk to their friends, and help you drive more revenues that way. And lastly, get feedback from your customers, right? What can we do better? Not just in terms of the operational stuff that we've asked them and we've analyzed as an industry, as a business. How was your check-in process? How was your checkout process? How was the room? How was the cleanliness of the room? Was the bathroom good? Sure, we have a lot of content and data available on that stuff. What we're struggling to answer today is, what do you care about? Right? What do you really want in a hotel experience? And I think those are the kind of feedback questions that we need to start asking our customers about what can we do to make their experience that little bit better. Maybe it is to add a free trip to the Taj Mahal, right? Who knows? We'd be surprised at what kind of answers we would end up getting there. So with that, I think I want to thank all of you again. Really appreciate you guys moving up front. I owe Joey a drink for that. And thank you for your time.